Hi Parker Panthers! I hope you guys had a great Easter, got to spend time with at least some of your family and had a lot of fun. Well, it's Tuesday, so it's the start of another week again. When we were reading Guess, we last left off at the end of chapter 10, and we are kind of at the climax of our story. We know that Molly finally achieved what she had sought to, which was to go to the Darklands and find her brother. However, the surprise is that her brother is no longer a baby, and he does not even want to go back with her. He does not even remember her as his sister. So we're at the climax. We don't know what's going to happen. Is she going to go home without her brother? Is she going to take her brother against his will? I don't know. We're just going to have to read and find out. So then, without any further delay, here we are with chapter 11. The next day came, dark as always and mizzling with rain and fog. I longed for sunlight and blue skies, for fields and meadows, for sheep on the hillsides as far as I could see, for larks singing over my head. So we can tell a lark is a type of bird. Sorry. I looked for my dog, but he wasn't there. Neither was Aiden or Guest. I was alone by the dying fire. "My dog?" I called. "Aiden? Guest, where are you?" The only answer came from a rook perched on a branch over my head. He cawed once, shifted his weight, and showered me with rainwater as he flew off. Had my stupidity driven them all away? Even Guest? What was I to do without them? Alone, I was no match for the kind folk. Kind. I almost choked on the word. Those ones didn't know the meaning of kind. Hateful and merciless they were, as careless of mortal lives as if we were ants or flies, pests, vermin, or things to destroy. I know this is off topic. Oh, no, my cat was up there listening to me. I was going to show you her, but she turned her head and decided she didn't want to listen. So, back to the story. I hid my face in my hands and began to cry. I was lost. Lost. I'd never see Thomas. I'd never find my way home. I'd be captured and die in this dark, miserable place. If only I could go back to that day in the garden when I started all of this with careless words. I hadn't meant to call attention to Thomas, but even though I knew the locket protected him, I fastened it around my neck. If I hadn't done that, then they couldn't have taken him. I thought I could make everything right by persuading the kind folk to give Thomas to me, but I failed miserably, stupidly, foolishly. I'd never get Thomas now. There was nothing to do but find my way home and beg Mam and Dado to forgive me. I lay on the cold ground by the dead fire and wept for all the mistakes I made. "Molly, get up!" Guest pried my hands away from my face. "You cry?" I sat up and hugged him so tightly he squirmed to free himself. "I thought everyone left and I was all alone in the Darklands." He held out my dog's hat filled with berries. "Look, I find a food for you." I devoured the berries, even though some of them weren't quite ripe. After I swallowed the last one, I felt better. "Where's my dog?" I asked Guest. "He and Aiden go for horses. We get away fast on horses. They run, 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 faster, faster, faster." Guest's voice rose as he bounced up and down on his skinny legs. "I never rode a horse." "Hush," I whispered. "Hush, calm yourself. We mustn't make too much noise. They might come again." Guest pressed his finger to his mouth and grinned. "Tell me," I said, "is my dog still angry? Did he say anything about me?" "My dog said to watch you and not let you do foolish thing." I took that to mean my dog didn't have much faith in me. Well, I'd shown him I wasn't as foolish as he thought. I'd stay right here with Guest and wait for him to return. While we waited, I sat by the fire, and Guest squatted beside me, building little towers out of stones. All around us, the woods were silent, as if they were waiting too. Suddenly, Guest clutched my arm. "Molly, listen. Someone comes. Not my dog, not Aiden." A twig snapped with a tiny crack. A leaf moved like a whisper. My hand went to my locket. Such a little thing it was, a bauble made of iron and coated with silver, but it had saved me last night. Jumping to my feet, I called, "Who's there?" No one answered. No one stepped forth, but the ferns quivered as if something smaller than a man and bigger than a fox hid in their fronds. Guest sniffed as if he were a dog. "Smell like kind folk," he said. I held up the locket. "Come out. We know you're there." After a few moments, a girl stepped from behind a tall oak. She wore the gray cloak of the kind folk and blended into the mist. She stopped when she saw the locket. "I mean you no harm," she told me in a low voice. I wouldn't be fooled again, not by a sweet voice or a pretty face. Brandishing the locket as if it were a flaming sword, I said, "Not a step closer." "Please trust me," she said. "I come in friendship." Guest trembled, but I hid my fear. "Trust you? No, I will not. I know full well the tricks your kind play." The girl pointed at Guest. "He's what I've come to see." She ran her eyes over him. "'Tis no wonder my mother took Tirnoch and left the changeling in his place." "Your mother didn't just take my brother. She stole him." The girl put on a haughty face. "The Lady Duatha did not steal your brother. She made a trade. Her baby for your mother's baby. A trade is something two people agree to, but my mother knew nothing of the so-called trade until it was done and Thomas was gone. Your mother is a thief and you know it." "Truly, you have less sense than an acorn newly fallen from a tree. If Lady Duatha learns you called her a thief, you will regret speaking ill of her." I swung the locket at the girl, and she jumped back. "Do not touch me with that, I beg of you." I swung the locket closer to her face. "Tell me who you are and why you're here, and do not lie." "My name is Aislinn, daughter of Lady Duatha. Although it shames me to admit it, the changeling is my half-brother. That's why I wanted to see him." "If you've come to take him, I won't let you. He's my friend, and I'm not ashamed to say it." "You're more than welcome to him. He's neither a kind one nor a traveler, but something in between. A misfit that belongs nowhere." I looked at Aislinn in surprise. "Guest's father is a traveler." "Do you not know who his father is?" Oh wait, I'm sorry, let me reread that. I looked at Aislinn in surprise. "Guest's father is a traveler? Do you not know who his father is? Can't you guess?" Guest had been building a tiny stone house for a green caterpillar he found, but when he heard his name, he looked up. "You know my daddo?" I looked at Guest and realized I must have known all along. Madog had given himself away from the very beginning. His kindness to Guest, the language they shared, the affection he showed. Aislinn knew I figured it out. My mother loved Madog, and he loved her. When the queen found out, she banned him from the Darklands. Such love is forbidden. "Madog is my daddo! Madog is my daddo!" Guest clapped his hands and laughed. "Your mother still has affection for Madog. My mother still has affection for Madog, maybe even love. It has softened her." Aislinn tossed her head as if she wanted me to know she wasn't soft. "My mother fears what the queen will do if she captures Madog. She also pities your brother." "Why does she pity Thomas? He's happy here. So happy he wants to stay in the Darklands." In a voice so low I barely heard her, Aislinn said, "Tirnoch believes he will be our king, but we have not been completely truthful with him." "Well, that's no surprise," I said. I waited for her to explain, but the words hung in the air like a bridge to nowhere. I stepped closer to her. "What doesn't Thomas know?" "Do you understand what a tithe is?" "Of course I do. We pay a tithe to the lord of the estate, whose fields we plow and plant and harvest. It's a tax, coins if we have them, but it can also be crops or a calf or a lamb. But what does tithing have to do with my brother? Every 7 years we are sworn to give the Dark Lord of these lands a tithe. That's the price we pay to roam the world as free as the wind. Tonight is the eve of tithe. We will celebrate with my marriage to Tirnoch. What she said was so ridiculous, I almost laughed. How can you marry? Thomas is a child and you're not much older than I am. Hear me out, Molly, please. After the wedding ceremony, Tirnoch will be crowned king. He will rule for 1 day and then... I waited for her to go on, but she stared at the ground as if she'd been struck speechless. What happens after that 1 day? My words were ashes in my mouth. I dreaded her answer. Think, Molly. Do not force me to tell you. Tell me, I beg you, that Thomas is not the tithe. Even the kind folk cannot be that wicked. Iceland looked down, as if ashamed to meet my eyes. It's why he was taken. The bonniest boy in mortal land is the tithe that Cernunnos demands. I'm sorry, Cernunnos, I believe is how you say it. Cernunnos demands. This cannot be, I cried. It must not be. The queen cannot be so heartless. Hush, Molly, and listen to me. Tirnoch was a sweet baby before the kind folk spoiled him with promises and baubles and clothes of velvet. He became a foolish, prideful boy, but he does not deserve to be tithed to the Dark Lord. Nor do you and the others deserve the fate the queen has planned for you. The air seemed to turn colder. What is our fate? After the wedding, the queen will lead the wild hunt. You and your companions will be her prey. No one escapes from her hounds and her horsemen. All of you will be captured and killed, and the changeling will be left to die in the forest. I took a step away from Iceland. No, it couldn't be true. It was too cruel, too wicked. I glanced at Guest to see if he'd heard, but he sat several feet away watching the caterpillar crawl up and down his arm. But my locket, I whispered. It protects us from you. Just last night I used it against a mob of kind folk. They fled into the forest to escape it. Iceland shook her head. The queen has powers far greater than your locket. Nothing you can do will stop her. What am I to do then? My mother and I have made a plan. We cannot promise it will work, and it will put you in great danger. Whatever it is, I will do it to save Thomas. Without him, I have no reason to go home. Iceland opened the bag she carried and pulled out a long gray cloak, much like the one she wore. Duatha wove invisibility into every thread of this cloak. As long as you wear it, you can come and go as we do, no more than a shadow in the shadow of something else. I took the cloak from her. It was as silky and light as milkweed fluff. Cautiously, I wrapped it around me. Cover your head. Don't let your face show. I did as she said and turned to Guest. Can you see me? He looked up from the little house and dropped the white stone he had been about to add to it. No! Off! Take that off! Want to see you! I lowered the hood. Here I am, silly. I don't like Heimful magic. Bad. Don't fret, Guest. I won't do anything foolish. I stroked the cloak's soft fabric and turned to Iceland. It must be woven of cobwebs, mist, moonbeams, and secrets. Something of the sort with a little magic mixed into the weaving of it. She looked into my eyes. Listen closely and say if you can do what I tell you. It's the only way to save your brother. Guest tugged at my skirt to get my attention. No foolish thing. Give it back. Don't trust kind folk. My dog. I twitched my skirt away from him. Hush. Let Iceland speak. Iceland spoke in a low voice. When nightfall comes, I'll come to you. Wear the cloak with the hood over your head so no one can see you. I'll lead you into the center of the stones. There, I'll leave you and join Tirnoch at the high table. Guest whimpered and pulled on my dress and begged me to wait for my dog to return. I slapped his hands away. "Be quiet, Guest." Guest backed away from me. I wanted to apologize to him for the slap, which was truly more of a tap, but instead I waited for Iceland to tell me the rest of the plan. "Watch for me to give your brother a golden goblet. When he drinks, he will grow weary. As soon as he sleeps, approach from behind and wrap the cloak around him. Make sure you keep the hood on and stay hidden. Tirnoch will be too drowsy to struggle. Leave as quickly and quietly as you can." I tried to think of what might go wrong, but there were too many possibilities. So I said nothing and waited for Iceland to tell me more. "Make certain that Madog and Aiden are ready to depart the moment you return with Tirnoch. When the queen discovers he's gone, she will lead the wild hunt after you. Leave the dark lands as fast as you can. You won't be safe until you enter your own land, and maybe not even then. Her vengeance may follow you." She paused a moment. "Can you do this, Molly?" "To save my brother, I'll do anything." "Good. I'll return at nightfall." With that, she vanished into the trees. This time, no twig snapped under her foot. No bush trembled. It was as if she'd never been here. Guest frowned at me. "You hit me." "I'm sorry I slapped your hands, but I had to listen to Iceland, just as I must go with her tonight and do my best to save Thomas." "Madog not like this. He won't let you go with her." "Surely Madog will see I have no choice." Guest shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not, but I say don't go." He picked up the caterpillar and placed it inside the little stone house. Adding a leaf for a roof, he showed me the hole he'd made in one wall. "Door," he said. Excuse me. "So Caterpillar can go outside." I watched him make a pebble path from the door to a little fence he made of sticks. He was really clever with his hands. Maybe when we got home, if we got home, he'd help Dado fix things. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 11. I'm going to quickly look at 12 to see how long it is. Okay, 12 is really short, so I'm going to go ahead and read 12 as well. Behind us, Madog stepped out of the woods almost as quietly as Iceland had vanished. Did I miss meeting a kind one just now? She came to help. Help you? Madog stared at me. How many times will you let them fool you? Do you never learn? Don't be angry, Madog. I twisted the locket on its chain. It was Iceland. Her mother is Duatha, whom I think you know. Madog's face flushed. I know them both. For the first time since I met him, he seemed lost for words. He simply stood there, looking past me at the woods where Iceland vanished. I tell Molly not to talk, Guest said, but she tell me hush. They make a plan. A plan? Madog looked at me. Tell me all that Iceland had to say. I took a deep breath to keep my voice from shaking. The kind folk mean to give Thomas to the Dark Lord as their tithe. I suspected that might be the way of it. Duatha came up with a plan to save us all. I wrapped the cloak around me. Madog cried out in surprise. I laughed and pulled the hood away from my face. It's Duatha's gift of invisibility. Guest scowled. I told you no more kind folk tricks. With that, he turned to his caterpillar, which had crawled out of its new home. You like leaf? You like grass? While Guest tried to feed the caterpillar, I described the plan. Madog listened closely, nodding, then frowning, then shaking his head, then nodding again. It might work, he said slowly, but do you dare enter the circle by yourself, with no one to trust but Iceland? I seized his arm. Please, Madog, tell me I can do this thing. You're a brave girl, Molly. If anyone can rescue Thomas, it's you. He got to his feet slowly. It's getting late. I'll light a fire and roast the rabbits I caught. Before we started eating, Aiden stepped out of the woods and joined us. The horses are fed and tethered. While we ate, I had little to say. My mind was fixed on rescuing Thomas. Aiden seemed to be in better humor and talked quietly with my dog about the horses. Guest moved closer and closer to my dog. When he was almost sitting in my dog's lap, he stared at him so hard that my dog finally noticed. "What's on your mind, little lad?" he asked. "Are you truly my daddo? Truly?" My dog laughed. "Indeed I am, and glad am I to say it." Aiden's good humor vanished. He tossed what was left of his dinner into the fire and stood up. "I'll see to the horses." With that, he vanished into the woods. The horses greeted him with a chorus of whinnies, and he spoke to them in a pleasant voice I'd never heard him use. My dog sighed and took Guest on his lap. "Did Iceland tell you?" "Yes, but she tell Molly she was shamed of me." My dog hugged him. "Never you mind what Iceland says, or Aiden either. Molly loves you, and so do I." Guest smiled. By the time Aiden rejoined us, it was almost dark. Guest had fallen asleep, and my dog and I were talking quietly. "What's your plan for tonight?" Aiden asked my dog. "You know they'll come again, in force this time." "We'll have no company tonight," my dog said. "It's the eve of tithe, and they have a wedding to attend." Aiden frowned. "I believe it's their custom to celebrate weddings with the wild hunt. By then we'll be gone from here." "Without the boy? How did you get Molly to agree to that?" "Duatha sent her daughter with a plan to rescue Thomas." Aiden scoffed. "Duatha? I want nothing to do with her or her plan. It's certain to be a trap." The dog shrugged. "I trust Duatha." Muttering to himself, Aiden walked away again. With his back to us, he stood silently at the edge of the forest. Getting to my feet, I wrapped myself in the cloak and tiptoed to his side. Clearly unaware of me, Aiden muttered about kindfolk and changelings and treachery. "Stop behaving like a half-wit mooncalf," I said. Aiden looked right at me. "What sort of trick is this? I hear you, but I don't see you." "I'm right here." I pulled the hood away from my face and laughed. In wonder, Aiden touched the cloak. "This is kindfolk stuff. Where'd you get it?" "Iceland gave it to me. I'll use it to rescue Thomas." "You are even more foolish than I thought." My dog took Aiden's arm and spun him around so they were face to face. "Listen to me, Aiden. There is a plan, a good one. Though it's dangerous for Molly, she's agreed to it." After my dog explained, Aiden shook his head. "You might be my father, but you're a fool to allow this girl to go anywhere with Iceland." "No one's asking you to go with me," I said. My dog put his hand on Aiden's shoulder. All you and I need to do is to be ready to flee with Guest when Molly returns with Thomas." Aiden looked at his father in disbelief. "Have you lost your wits? The kindfolk will keep Thomas, and the wild hunt will capture us. Molly will spend her mortal days as a slave. You and I will be tortured and killed, and the changeling will be left to die in the forest." My dog scowled at his son. "Be quiet. No more of that talk. Duatha has bewitched you for certain." Aiden's face reddened with anger. "Leave these ones to their fate and come home to my mother. She demands it." "Ronan has no right to give me orders." Aiden turned away and stood apart. The day's gray light faded into shadows. The hoots of owls replaced the caws of crows and rooks. Gusts of wind swept through the trees and scattered the fire's coals. The dying flames lit the gleam of a dog's eye, the thrust of his nose, the line of his jaw. After covering Guest with a blanket, my dog said, "I fear for you, Molly." "You know I must do it." I hugged my knees close to my chest and waited for Iceland. With every breath I drew, I told myself I'd rescue Thomas. We'd return to our cottage, and Mam and Daddo would be happy again. This long, hard journey would end like a fairy tale, with all of us, even Guest, and that bird we can all hear, living happily ever after. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 12. So tomorrow I will go ahead and record at least 13. So it was great reading for you guys again, and keep up your work in Schoology. If you have questions, you can email me, you can send me a message on Dojo, and I will respond to that as quickly as possible. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.